Good day, everybody. Welcome to our October 2021 Dalim tips and tricks. Going to cover project planning. Sorry, we skipped last month. Ida kind of threw us for a loop, so we had to deal with evacuations and stuff. Always fun. So this will be interesting. I'm a bit rusty. I haven't done these in a while. And project planning is not something we've implemented yet for any customer. So I'm kind of doing a walkthrough and came up with a scenario in my mind just to kind of show and get everybody used to it. Try to get some peak so we can actually get some customers using it over here in the US. So what we're going to cover is basically production planning in ES. You just kind of do a walkthrough, talk about some specific features and some gotchas in using it. So we'll cover calendars, task, effort, Gantt charts, and Kanban, and then try to stay completely out of Keynote and just stay inside the product itself. So get cranked up. So first of all, I guess I should show what we're going to accomplish, and what we're going to accomplish is basically what winds up being a Gantt chart view. So this is a view of all the projects I have that I'm entitled to, so I'm only seeing it for specific customers, not all customers. And this is multiple projects and their statuses along with efforts down here, and I'll explain that later. So you can kind of go through these, hone in just on the ones you want to take a look at, and you can get additional information on those over here on the right. And let me move this so that's out of the way. So what is, the basis of, the planning of project planning in the ES? What Dalim decided to do is actually based it on project workflows. So we've had a mix of customers that actually use project workflows, besides just using document workflows. And, project workflow is just kind of, as we've explained it, it's kind of that overarching look at what's going on in the whole project, different steps in the project. This is the kind of project workflow I came up for this, and I'll explain what we're doing in here and why we're doing it. But even in pre-ES6 with project planning being implemented, if you were doing project workflows, a lot of times it was just kind of an overarching view, or you were using it to trigger things like the creation of digital editions or EPUBs or something like that, where you had to make sure through milestones that the project was finished or at a certain point, and you could trigger something to happen from that on all the pages or all the documents inside of a project. This, since it expands that, again, the planning of it, the thought of what this needs to look like and how it interacts with the document workflows definitely needs to be thought out beforehand. So you got to have planning. You can't just kind of create this after the fact once you've started your project. It needs to be in place from the very beginning and definitely thought out. So, the different pieces of it are, these, if you look at this project workflow, it looks like basically what we've always seen, right? A bunch of milestones put together, a start with maybe an order being received, and you're thinking just photo shoot, retouching, pre-press, or different stages of the project and the job being completed. And then we have another piece at the bottom, because project workflows can have multiple pieces happening at the same time. Page design, since it can happen with photo shoot and retouching, is just on the side, and it's just one, we're looking at this thinking it's a milestone. But because of project planning, these aren't actually just milestones. They're actually now what we call tasks. And tasks are stored in milestones. They're basically just milestones with a little something extra added to it. And show what those are is we'll go like with the photo shoot on the first one there. One is it has to be used as a deadline. So you definitely have to have the deadline aspect of it, which we did have before. We used in scheduling and used typically just for like notifications if it hasn't reached this milestone by a given date based on the schedule, you would send notifications out, that kind of thing. The tasks are set by basically the must be approved. So if it must be approved and it's an approval or a step, usually I just do step because there's not a reject necessarily, or an upload, kind of thing. So it has to have a validation type, must be approved, and there's this new piece called the duration. So duration is basically how long we allow for this task to happen in production. You can modify this once you create a project. So this is just kind of a basis. Typically, the photo shoot takes, whatever it is, 1 week in this instance or something like that. So this is the main aspect of it. And like before, if you had a milestone that needed an approval, you sign up an approver, a role to act as the approver. So in this case, the photographer is the role I have assigned for this. So planning relies heavily on roles and then people being assigned to those roles or groups being assigned to those roles. So that's all you're really looking at there. The project task, or pretty simple. That's all they do. With ES6 and this project planning feature, they started thinking about, well, we have this project workflow, and typically in our project workflows, the only communication we had between the document workflow and the project workflow was send and wait events, right? You would have a wait event maybe here before the photo shoot that once it received the first image inside of a workflow, the send event would send the event here, okay, photo shoot started. You always had the trick of dealing with, well, how do we know how many images are going to exist? Pages, sometimes we cheated because with pages, if we have a flat plan, we were able to say the number of flat plan pages inside of the wait event. Or we knew how many pages it was going to be, so we just entered that number directly in it. But because of project planning, they wanted to expand on that. So the one thing they created is inside of the document milestones, and these are truly just milestones. So these aren't necessarily tasks. As you notice, there's no deadline on them. If I actually pick the right one. So here's our page design, and these will work, and I'll show you the document workflow in a little bit, but they're gonna work a lot like what we were used to doing if you build a document workflow and you really wanted to milestone it up, right? So you had a milestone before every approval, milestone after that's done, the correction milestone. So you had kind of 3 milestones associated with every approval step, or if you're sending it to twist or anything like that, you had all these milestones that were just decorating the whole workflow up, showing exactly where the file was as it went through. And then we used to have the send events linked in there too. So it was telling the project workflow where to go. Well, now we have this apply on task. So by setting it to the deadline of a project, we're able to apply it on a specific task. And the action being start task, end task, or reset task. So correction resets the task. When it enters that, we start it, and then we can end it when it leaves it. This actually sets it up to communicate with the project task and tells it how many files it's gotten through here. So it kind of dynamically adjusts the project workflow to know how many files are being submitted to the document workflow and updating it. So the percentage would change and it'll actually show a finish based on how many it's received. So important to remember, and that's just in addition to milestones being able to communicate back. So don't have to use the send and wait events and try to figure out how many files you're going to get, especially with something like photography where you just don't know how many they're going to get shot. especially if you go through a rating process and selection process on the images. You may shoot 100 and only keep 5. So you can't expect 5 images because that's all you need. So the way that looks inside of a document workflow is, let's go with this one. It'll be something like this, right? So, preview generation, photo shoot started, approval, photo shoot done. Once that's done, retouching, updating those, reset if there's an approval process, retouching done, and then the end of your document workflow, whatever it's going to do, digital delivery or just a milestone. Now, and it's kind of fun to cover this project because like my mind's running in different directions of what I need to show before I show anything, because like a lot of features in ES, you got to know where all the different pieces are, what you're touching, what you got to have set. One very important piece of it is in your user profile. So whatever user profile is going to use the planning feature, whether it's the Gantt chart in the smart view that I'm going to show, or whether it's inside the project itself and doing the planning, you have to have the old schedule tab off. So what I'm talking about is for the job ticket itself, having that guy off. If he is not off, it will not let you do planning. It'll actually tell you you have to have the schedule tab off. And not only here, but you also need it off on job creation ticket for your profile. Tricky part about that, obviously, is some of us, especially sysadmins, you use different profiles to log in for depending on different things. So you have to make sure the one you're using to do anything on planning has scheduling off and obviously planning on. So nice caveat there, caught me in the beginning. I didn't know what was going on, and then I caught one of Raphael's presentations and noticed it in one of his slides that he pointed that out. Missed it. It'll show it basically just grayed out and you won't be able to do anything. Also, you need to make sure that that's editable if you want to edit it. If you only have it viewable, it will let you see the Gantt chart but not let you edit it. So definitely things to watch out for there. Also, the 2 new features inside of here are the Gantt chart itself that I showed in the beginning, and a Kanban, which school's out on for me still. I'm still trying to get my head around exactly the full use of it. But I'll cover it and talk about it. But I'm presenting them basically inside of smart views, and these need to be set up. They don't ship with ES6, but they are pretty basic. They're easy to set up. So under customization, the first thing you need is a job ticket for your Kanban, and that job ticket is just basically a desktop type layout type. So you set that as a desktop, and then the components down here, there actually is Gantt, if I spell it right, ES component. So all you need to do is make it new, make it a desktop, and drag this guy in there. That's it. There's not really any good settings. One tricky one, one that's good to have on, I think, because at first when I was dragging things all the way to done, familiar with how Kanban works, where you're picking up a task here, putting it in progress, pausing it, or when you're done, putting it in done or rejecting it. This by default is at the 0, so pretty much you drag it in there, it disappears. So if you wanted to show for any amount of time, you want to set some kind of duration here for how long you want it to stay in done. Other than that, I didn't play with it having milestones. The task filter is basically filter here to say my task or my team. The rest of the, if that's not on, this doesn't show, but customer and project still shows. I played with a height percentage in that, and one limitation I found is that this pretty much stays this size. I had no way I found, and maybe Raphael will chime in if he's watching this and let me know if there's a way to increase the size of this. I thought it was limited, especially if you have a big screen, to a certain size. And even if I changed the actual box it's in, it didn't really matter. So you know, maybe there's a way, but I didn't see it. But that's all you need there. So to create your actual job ticket itself, and then in the smart view, I just kept it real simple, called it Gantt. And all you do is make a new one, call it whatever you're going to call it, tell it desktop, and then you choose Gantt. And obviously you can add an icon or something like that. So that's all there is to creating that one. And the Kanban is pretty much the same thing. You just drag the Kanban component in. So Kanban panel drags in here. Again, not really any tricky settings or anything like that. And then you make your smart view using the desktop setting. And what that'll give you, obviously, you can give that permissions to whoever needs it, or just like you would any other smart view, and they'll show up and you use them. So again, those do not ship by default. You have to create those if it's something you want to use. All right, so we'll cover the project workflow, and then I'll talk about a couple other things. So workflows. What I decided to do is just come up with kind of basically like you're going to create a brochure, or we're just going to do something simple like that. So there needs to be a photo shoot. After the images are done, goes through retouching. After that's done, goes through pre-press and job's done. And while the photo shoot's going on, there's a page design part going as well. And what I decided to do, and what I'm going to focus on mostly to do the demo, is actually doing this, is right, using a pre-created project plan and using that to do my Gantt chart, my project planning from. There's also a way to create it manually inside of a new project. And I'll kind of touch on that. I find it cumbersome, but it's definitely something I should cover. But it's nice for one-offs or something like that if you want it. Typically one-offs, we don't necessarily care about it. Usually this stuff is in plan things that are repetitive. So that's the project plan, and then we have a couple different document workflows. One is the one I showed here, which is for the photo shoot itself, or the images, I should say, itself. And then there's a kind of a page design one, very basic workflow. And I forgot, and I think this is my pre-press one, or for the pages when they come in. So typically what you're going to want to do is maybe your default templates, right? So we're going to go inside and look at a template that we're going to use to create all this automatically when we go inside of the project. When we make a project, so we actually just get it done by default. So this is my project template I created for this demo. And one thing I did, just so I don't have to jump around and log in as a bunch of different users and go crazy, is I set my admin user that I'm logged in as for every role, just so I can do different approvals without having to log in and log out and drive you guys crazy. So that's just why you see that here. Typically, what you're going to do is, those roles are assigned to the task already. And when we create the project, through the project plan, we'll assign who's responsible for those roles instead of using the tab here like we typically do. So my document workflow for the default document is going to be the pages workflow. So that's the final pages. We have our project workflow set. Project planning shows us the roles that are needed in there. Rest of these, most of these I'm not using for the purpose, but we do have our planning tab. In our planning tab, it's just going to show us kind of a base to show us, this is what it's based on. This is the, 3 days or whatever I gave, 4 days for page design, shows it here. 5 days for photo shoot, same thing going on there. So you can take a look at all the different milestones, all different tasks, I should say, and the amount of time I have associated with those. You'll see the start offset. The pre-press tab one is offset by 9 days, 2 hours because of all of these needing to come first. So we basically have, these links in between it and dependencies on photo retouching can't start until the photo shoot's done. Pre-press can't start until retouching's done. And you can tie it in any kind of way. I could have tied in page design as well, needs to be done before pre-press can start, that kind of thing. Inside of any of these, this shows from the first tab that admin's already put in there. I'm not going to kind of mess with this until I actually go inside of a project, but you can kind of set any of these up if any kind of way you want. If I wanted to put kind of a lag in there, I can build a lag in there, whatever I want. So that's just, you want to have your project template set up, and this is whether you're doing a magazine and every issue follows the same thing, then this becomes the project template for that, or different types of books, whatever. You can make different project templates just like we do today. So what I'm going to do is inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and make a new project. Okay, and just like my project template set up, my admin set up to already be in those roles. My document workflow is set up, make sure my approvals are there. I did miss something that I'm gonna go back and show. But let me go ahead and make this. So my pages workflow is set up, so my document workflow, planning project, and my plan is set as a default from today, because I'm making this project, it's set by today. But I can come in here and say, on my auto schedule, that I actually won't be starting this maybe till Monday. And then based on that, I can change the dates of everything and how they run. Or I can work retro and I could say, well, you know what? I just need to make sure this is finished by the end of November and do retro planning from the end of November. So all that's allowed, kind of like we used to do retro planning or forward planning from our schedule tab that we used to have. We can do all that kind of stuff in here. And I'm going to redo that project. So let me show one other thing that's going to happen in here from here. Yeah, sorry. So under folders, because I need more than one workflow running, obviously, right? I have different document workflows. I just set up folders to run my photo shoot. So images are going to be dropped in here. And that's interesting. That changed on me, but okay. But and then design, my design pages, my not production files, so it's InDesign pages or whatever it might be, are going to be dropped in here. All right, so we'll go back and kind of go through that. So it should have nothing else to do in here, but actually do my planning. And when I do the planning, so we'll let it start from today. I can select specific task and do my assignments directly in here, right? So I'm gonna come in here, admin's already assigned, but I need a photographer. So we're gonna go ahead with photographer 1 is gonna be assigned to this. it starts showing me the different efforts down here, and I'll cover that in a second. But let me go, actually, did I just set that for page design? Yeah, I just did. So it actually shows you which one you selected here, because it's actually hard to see in the GUI which one you have selected, but it does show you I have design selected. So we're going to get rid of that and change that to design one. Go to photo shoot, needs to be a photographer. Go to retouching. Doesn't really matter which one. And then finally to pre-press. So I have all those set. While it sits there and it does do calculations from what I noticed in here, but until you save this project, it doesn't show up on the list. So that doesn't update until you actually make, save your changes, since it doesn't know if you're going to save it. Like before, I could delete this and restage it. It's not calculating the whole time. This part down here, this kind of workload, as they call it, is based on the amount of effort that goes into these tasks. And by default, the amount of effort inside of a task is the same as duration of the task. So, duration, like I explained in the beginning, is going to be for this task. So for page design, I'm allowing 4 days for this to be completed. But as we know, just because we allow that amount of time to be planned for the page design, it doesn't mean somebody's going to be sitting there 4 solid days doing the design of this, right? It's going to be done with through other work, whatever. So they have what's called effort. The effort's the amount of time that it should really take this person to do it. So whether it's 1 day or 12 hours, oops, not 12 minutes, 12 hours, which it converts to 1 day, 4 hours. So you're able to change the amount of effort that's associated with that. So I have somebody assigned to it, and this is the amount of effort it's going to take for them. If you have multiple assignees to it, it'll split between them. So if I had this as just 1 day, it'll do 4 hours and 4 hours. It's based on 8-hour days, or however your calendars are set up, which I should have covered already, but I'll go back to that. So that's how it's calculating this. When it shows red, it's basically saying this is over. There's too much effort involved. You don't have enough time to do this. Very odd, and it's tough setting up for a demo to actually see this in real world. So I can't tell you if it really works great or not, or how accurate it would be. I started seeing kind of reds up here, not seeing them here, and was a little bit confused as to what was going on exactly. Yeah, I definitely have to admit that. But if you look, basically on the left-hand side is the actual user that has different events assigned, but different tasks assigned, and this is their amount of effort inside of those tasks. So I'm guessing for this one, this makes sense that he's got 3 projects he needs to work on the 25th of October. So yeah, he's overexerted that day. But this one just doesn't make sense to me. He's got that, maybe he's off on Saturdays, possible, that kind of thing. But like him, kind of weird. I thought that was odd, but I was playing with the calendar, so it might just been how I set the calendar up. But so this is based on a couple of things which I'll cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this so we can go back to it. But the effort's based on a couple of things. And again, sorry to hop around. This is a fun thing to actually show people. But one thing it's based on and is for your given users, right? We've had this for a long time, but no one, there was no use for it at all before. But work capacity. So you can set up amount of work capacity that someone's able to work. So that's one thing it's based on, and that could be, you know, whether it's 8 hours a day or whatever, you can set that up. The other thing it's actually set up based on is a new feature called calendars. So under customization, you now have calendars. You can have as many calendars as you want. So it could be a corporate calendar, specific customer calendars. Inside the customers, you can modify the calendar. And of course, the calendar is going to decide not to show up now. And sorry, sidetrack. Where's my calendar? Nice. Let me go to Safari and see if it shows up in Safari. I'm usually in Safari, so I hadn't noticed. Not sure if that's a bug or something else is going on there.
While you're hunting, Fred, we did get a comment in the questions area. Someone said that they were having audio issues. It sounds fine to Jude and I both, but if anyone else is having trouble hearing Fred, just pop a comment in the question area and we can look into it.
Yeah, let us know. Typically, I mean, Jude and Alex should be listening the same way you guys are. So please let us know if anybody else is having problems. And then the answer to the other question that's there is we have not implemented this in the US yet. So we're looking forward to, and that's kind of why I'm doing the webinar, to get everybody familiar with it, so that hopefully we can get people on it and start using it. I'd like to see the new features get used. So this is a calendar, and I just set up a one calendar webinar, and you can basically set up days however you want. I'll go ahead and kind of create a new one. No saves there. So just like any feature, you create a new one, you call it what you want, and you basically just start planning in a way, right? So you set up a calendar. Here's my working times. You can drag and drop on there. You gotta be careful. I noticed if you noticed before, sometimes even saving it actually like shortchanges you there. It doesn't lock into certain times, but you're able to do that. You can copy and paste. The one thing I haven't seen them implement is any kind of tie-in to like holidays or anything like that. So those have to be put in separately, but you're able to view via week, via month, which is more when you have a specific user. The extra hours and days off doesn't really fit going into the corporate calendar itself, but you know, you can definitely use that for individual users or something like that, and they're able to modify their calendar and set days off and everything. And then you have the time zone that you're in, so you can set your time zone up, set your calendar up, and really that's all there is. You know, setting up the base one here, but the calendars, when you create customers now, so we don't need to save that. So I got my webinar customer here. You see that it's actually a calendar that you can define here. So for this customer, which of the calendars that I just set up do I want to use? I only have one, it's webinar, but if you want to have multiple ones, you can have it and select it for different customers. So that can even hold their time zone in it, in that, so that you can manage that as well. Then for a specific user, and I think I have my users here. Now let me go for them. Right, for a specific user, you also have a calendar, and that calendar can be a little bit different. So maybe this guy works on Saturday mornings. You know, he does that if he wants off. Yeah, he's going to be off here. He can actually schedule that, and that's going to be accounted for in the effort and how it's calculating his time and everything. So kind of how all of those play off of each other, and you know, he has extra hours where he's going to be working some extra hours as well. You can calculate that. So effort will understand that he's off these hours, but he's working extra hours here. So it'll calculate that inside of it. Not, you know, a lot more to it than that for the calendars. To me, they seem like they need a little bit of work, but they're definitely working better than when we first got them, where they were completely broken. I did notice, and I need to do some testing. As I was going through this, I didn't do a lot of playing with the calendars, but I did notice, and I'm pretty sure I did it right from the beginning. But if I look at this webinar calendar now, you'll notice 8 in the morning until 17:59, 17:54 for this guy. I don't know. I was pretty sure I was right and had it right like I just did. It seemed to have shifted on me. And this was originally when EF6 first came official, when this was really broken. That's what you would see is you'd actually plan it out. And if you saved it and jumped back in, it would actually show up at like 3 in the morning instead of 8 in the morning. Just arbitrarily jump. It had an issue with the time zones, it seemed like. But seems okay now, and this could have just been me. Maybe I just missed it. But just to note, and I am on the latest beta patches, so possible it could just be a beta thing. We'll see. It's something we'll keep an eye on. But again, haven't played with it enough to really know if it's consistent behavior or not. So we'll go back to our project, and let's see. Well, one thing we can do is we can go to our Gantt chart. Right now, I'm just going to try to do this between browsers, so I'm not jumping in and out too much. And so now if I go to my smart view and go to my Gantt chart, I can see that. And here's my webinar 10. That's the one we're working on. And we can kind of see it there. I'm going to go over some of the settings inside of it separately, but right now I'm just kind of do a run through to show you what what it's actually doing and how it actually looks in production. And then I'll kind of go through individual settings. I see we're already running a bit long. So if I jump into my webinar, jump into my photo shoot, and upload some files to it. Right, so I got some images. I'm just upload a few images to it. And this, the document workflow is going to work just like you'd be working on any document. All right, so we just upload them. They're going through. They're at an approval step. Basically just kind of cuts it off. One thing to note is that if you let the Gantt chart sit here, if I go between, it seems to go gray, and you have to kind of refresh it. And it does take the Gantt chart a second to actually pop in. Of course, now it's going to be on the webinar. It's going to decide not to come in. There we go. Okay, so for my webinar 10, one thing I've noticed, it kind of just sets these to start automatically because I don't have a milestone up front that's blocking it. So, that's something you could set where it would look like this, where they're still waiting. But these have started whether they got it a file or not. But if you remember what my workflow looked like, so I'm sitting here, photo shoot started. As soon as I approve these, it'll go to photo shoot done, and then jump towards the retouch. So if I just approve a couple of these files, come here, you'll notice that my photo shoot now represents 43% completed, right? So it's doing some files, it's completed. I know it's actually in progress, so I can actually take a look at that. If I'm popping in here as a CSR or a manager and just popping in to see if this is getting worked on, right? I know the photographer's doing his work. He's already got some images shot. Now, what this 43% represents is, 3 files out of the 8 or approved. Okay, and if I approve the other ones, and it does not refresh automatically, so you see it actually goes green and it's actually done, but my retouching hasn't started yet. Reason why is they don't let you just base it on that. If I want to move to the next step, I have to tell it my photo shoot's done. Why? Because maybe the photographer's not done. Those images just got approved. He's got some more images to upload. So if I upload 3 more images now, I hate the way it doesn't stay on. You'll notice it's back to 70%. So it's no longer completed. It now knows, whatever it is, 10 images I have, 7 of them have been approved. So that's why they want a manual approval that this task is completed. So I can go ahead and do that, finish these 3 up. Well, actually, before I do that, and I'll tell you why I'm doing it this way in a second. But at the same time that the images are being shot, I got my pages too, so I can be working on the design of the pages. Those are going in, same process, right? It's just going through a little bit different workflow. These are going in, they're going through pre-press workflow. Okay. And my Gantt chart wiped out again. Yeah, it actually jumped ahead because actually I accidentally set it to the wrong workflow for somebody. They should be in the page workflow and you should have represented a difference here like this. So if I was running through the right workflow, it would actually show this. So page designs at a certain part, photo shoot certain percentage, whatever that is, and that could go through. And again, if I go back into here and finish the approval of these, and hopefully I'm not jumping around too much, but you'll see that finished again. So it's green saying all the images that have been submitted have been approved through the photo shoot stage. I don't know if that's all the images. If it's all the images, the photographer can come in here or whoever's got permission and approve that milestone. And now it's jumped in the workflow to the retouching stage. And here we should show that that stage actually started. So you'll see the play button instead of the dots. So retouching is actually started. And if we do those approvals, again, we basically get the same thing. Right, so those are actually finished. And you see the check mark that they're actually all done and moved on. Sorry, the one I wanted to point out, sorry, you'll see the play here. Notice the percentage doesn't show up for this guy. There is a bug, and it's been a bug for a while now, waiting to be fixed. It seems like the second milestone, or if this one's been finished, these will not, the reason I submitted images earlier is because this will not reflect the proper percentage if this one's been completed. It's a bug, it blocks them from showing up. Pre-press will work, but the second one doesn't. That's just to let you know if you're playing with this and you see that behavior, you're not crazy, it is a bug. Not sure why, but it won't show that percentage. So I wanted to point that out before it drives somebody else crazy like it did me for a couple of days. So same thing, you just go through, you do your approval. You can say that your retouching's finished, say your page design's finished, all that. Stage up the workflows and actually just represent it here. So it's just letting you know what's being done, where the project stands, and that we're at the pre-press stage, ready to go. And if we do the pre-press one, so we'll just submit a couple of pages in the main one. Hopefully it goes through the right workflow this time. Just to bore y'all, same thing, same behavior here. This one, if I'm not mistaken, the third milestone usually works. Just that kind of that middle one that breaks. So you'll see the percentage here. Half the pages are actually completed. And when we actually finally complete those, we get the same behavior where this will show green with the arrow, not the check mark yet, until we actually say we're done. We got all our pages. And now we're done and the job's completed. Something I need clarification on. I meant to do it before and I kind of forgot about it. You notice these timestamps on here. Very odd. Don't know what they're based on. 3 days, 7 hours, and 41 minutes. Don't know, and I need to talk to Raphael and see if there's an explanation to that. This, to me, should be the actual real time that this was done in. But, you know, where it's getting these from, why it ended then, I don't know. To me, that looks like a bug. But we'll see. I'll let you guys know. I'll update y'all if I find out why those show up wrong there. So just since I'm running long already, amazing how much time you take up on this. Wanted to go through a couple things here just to tell y'all what each of these things do. So let's just make a new one and go straight to our planning. Come on. And let me try it again. It's like the resources on my laptop are kind of getting bogged down. Well, I wonder if this is a Chrome bug. Yeah, because usually I should be in here. I shouldn't have jumped from there. Like I said, most of my testing, the only reason I have Chrome open with was just to show the Gantt chart live, or be able to tab. So all this has been done in Safari. So okay, yeah, so it works here. So again, this is a new project I'm creating, and just wanted to show one thing to show is, obviously this is based on my project template, but I can change this. One, I can just drag them if I said, that's not going to start until then or whatever, or I can drag the whole project over, change the whole timeline of it. I can also do that here where I can actually change that out, change it on the auto schedule like I did before, where I actually did a start date and then reset everything based on that. and it from workflow just kind of freshes it and sets it the way the workflow's got it set to be set. So I just reset everything back to today and moved everything. And so if I want to kind of move things around again, I can do that. And I'll just do it like that just to show a couple more things. So I can clear everything here and kind of start over and manually do it. I can do what they call save baseline. So if I select this project and I save the baseline, I basically am locking this into this time frame. So if anything gets delayed, it's basically not allowing that. It's going to warn me. You see, everything goes red, and you shouldn't do that. If you don't have if you don't save the baseline, you can do lag inside of there. You can actually, have things overdue. It's just kind of a way to lock it down. And I can clear the baseline as well. For a given task, right? I can lock that task. And again, that's kind of saying for this task, he's locked. I can't move him. So I may reschedule other things, but he shouldn't go anywhere. If you notice, I can't drag him now. So that's what the locking does. I can obviously delete them. I can change the start date. And like I showed before, I can play with the effort on them. Links, basically show these links in here, and I can actually schedule any kind of lag I want in there. That's interesting. So I can schedule the lag, do anything like that. I showed you I can do the assignments here. So that's what assignments are. And I'll show you in a minute, any of the pages submitted that are basically associated with that get set here, and you can actually see them. Another thing you can actually do is for a given milestone, and since this is admin and I'm assigned, this may work. I can do notes. So I can set a note and do an attachment with that note. All right, and I'm just going to do a screenshot in there. So that can be saved with that note. So that's kind of the basics. So, what you're doing in there, what you can move, how you can set some of this up. What you can also do is, and I'll play with this one a little bit. This is not necessarily something I recommend. I think it's quirky, but you can do this. If I go ahead and for this one, I'm going to clear everything. You can actually create all this manually inside the project plan. So I can say, I'm going to add a task. Call it new photo, for instance. By default, it's just a milestone and shows here type milestone or task. I can make it a task. I can set a date. I can set the duration. And if I save this, oh, I got to assign a role. So I'm defining a role. Who's going to fulfill this? This is just like basically you're creating a task back in the admin area. So that's why I had to create that, assign somebody to the role, that kind of thing. So when I do that and save that, actually here, under my milestones, under planning folder, it'll actually, sorry, the one I just created was that one. It is actually creating a task for you based on those settings. And all of that can be done, basically everything I did kind of be done manually. So if I now make a new task, and I'm going to keep it simple to not burn up too much time, but create another one here. I can drag that. I'm going to make this guy a task, just like we did before, and link those, right? So photo shoot, retouch. And same thing, I keep forgetting to do that. Add a role, the retoucher is my role. I have to tell it, I should have set that for the other one. I have to tell it what type of validation. So all with manager validation, I'll show you that real quick in a second. So I'm just putting any retoucher, and admin fulfills the retouching role, right? And let me double check him. Okay, he is set that way. So the any with manager thing is based on something I'm going to show in a minute. Just remember that. What I want to show real quick is inside this project now, I don't actually have a real project workflow, but there is one it kind of created for this. They're a mess, but the pieces are there. So it should have actually, and I don't know why I can't drag that one, but it should have had those two linked. Oh, I know why. I cleared it from one, basically what it should look like, and I think I did that here.
Actually, go back into it, Fred, and do workflow edit, and I think it'll let you drag them apart.
Yeah, but I did one. I built that off of one that had a project template, and I think that makes a mess. This one that I was playing with before actually worked from kind of just a customer that doesn't have a project template. So, but you're saying, Mike, go here, editing mode, yeah. No, these are fine, but yeah, it's kind of
What it did in the other one is it stacked two milestones on top of each other.
That was test 2, right? Nope, test 3, I guess. I wish it looked that neat. Yeah, so there's the new photo, new retouch, and these exist only because they're only milestones. So I cleared tasks, but those original milestones stayed. But basically, it makes this project workflow on the fly. So the any with manager, that is based on, and this is something I haven't played with, Mike, or you guys tell me if y'all have. Under system configuration, you have this reporting line role. That's where that's used. So say this is set to production manager. Well, in that project, if I set somebody up for that fulfills the role of project manager, you would have to have the approver of the role that's assigned and the production manager's approval before it would move on. So that's where that's getting it from, and that's the first use of that I've seen at all. I don't even remember how long this has been in in here itself. So just an additional thing, but that's what that is. If you're playing with that and you see the any or the any with manager approval, that's where that's coming from. All right, so let me see if there's something I'm missing. From notes, that's kind of covering. Well, the only thing I kind of didn't show is Kanban. And like I said, this is a little bit awkward to show, but let's see if I can actually show it. I'm going to go in as a user that should have something assigned. Nope, he doesn't. Or it's waiting for something. Because if I hit waiting task, it's there. I can show a couple of things. So Kanban looks like this, basically any tasks that are set up for somebody to work on. And you know what? I am assigned. Let me see if I can just do that as the admin user. Yeah, he's got one. Okay. But I do want to show something here. So you'll see that for this, I do have the attachment showing up. If I double click, it'll show basically the notes here. So here are my notes, and showing on that note, I have an attachment. It's very awkward, but yeah, if you click just right, it'll show the attachment there, and you just open it up like that. So there's your attachment. So whether it's like a photo shoot list or something like that, maybe you'd want to attach to that, you can do that. I did find kind of a bug in here. If you don't have a customer selected, so if you don't have this filter on, I found it, you couldn't really put it in progress, or it wouldn't represent it correctly. So you do that, you see it actually did move, even though without this, it doesn't show it there. Very odd bug, but right now, if you just remember here, it actually shows it. So I'm basically saying, hey, I got this, I'm working on this, and I can do the approval for this step. Basically, this is just an approval. You'll see the approval dialog box comes up, and I'm approving it, I've accepted it, and yeah, hit the refresh, and it's there for 2 minutes. So that's the Kanban. To me, they have to build more use into it. I think, Mike, you were talking to me earlier about you should, this right now just represents basically my task. One thing, when Mike said that, it may be what the use of this is, where it's my team. Yeah, so Mike, here's my team. So it shows other tasks, because I'd want to see who picked up some of these tasks, not just what waiting tasks are. So I have an overview of what's going on completely. Oh, they picked up this photo shoot, I don't have to worry about it, kind of thing. Mike was saying you actually can overstep each other and 2 people accept the same thing. But that's kind of the Kanban using, and if you kind of work from this view, so if you do have it set up, like, something like photographer, right, where maybe he's just uploading images and then just has this to do his approval. It's kind of a Kanban, a lot of people use that in different software. And you can say, okay, I'm done, instead of having to be in the ES interface itself and hitting, the check mark and selecting his files or anything like that. So it kind of gives an easier way to work. All right, I think that's all I had to show. Let's kind of go through questions. Can you view the calendar?
Real quick, Fred.
Okay, go ahead.
About some of the terms that you used.
Okay.
For instance, the last thing you did, there's this feature called My Team. What is a team?
I'm gonna have to play with that, honestly. This just came up right before the webinar with Mike, and I had turned this. I've been prepping for the demo by turning this off. I had this turned off, didn't realize the setting was there. That's what I had kind of shown. I think it was in the job ticket itself. Where am I at? Why'd my job ticket go? In the job ticket, you actually had the setting to actually see it or not. So
You
I
it
turned it
said
on and it just
customer,
goes.
your user profile probably. You got a restrictive user profile.
Yeah, that's possible. But it definitely had something to do with that. And I noticed that, you know, I obviously have something set up accidentally with it, but I don't know, because it shows these waiting tasks, even though they're not my task, but they are my team's task. So that I'll find that out and I'll actually email that out. Hopefully, I'll try to maybe update it before the mailer goes out Friday, because it was kind of a to do something I needed to play with.
Okay,
All
another
right. What else?
question is another term you used was lag when you were setting up
Mhm.
the planning. What is lag?
Lag is just the amount of time that might fall between one task being finished and the other one needing to start. And in fact, let's see, can I move that?
So it's a
So,
gap between.
so that is a lag, right? So if actually I meant to go through these, but kind of running out of time, I can say show to Slack. They call it Slack. Lag, same thing. It's basically this amount of time that it actually can sit before this starts. It's all nothing special. You also have like critical path, so this has to follow that kind of thing. It's all normal Gantt chart stuff. This show the workload just shows the effort below, the workload below, on and off. You can change the timeline. So basically, typically you're going to fit the timeline to the task, but you can turn that off and have it reflect a specific time frame you're concerned about, and change that. You can also zoom in here to week, month, or zoom out, I should say, to zoom month, or all the way down to the hour.
Okay, another question was, can you view the calendar for an entire team to know who's available and who is not? So for a given day, who's working and who isn't?
Not that I've seen. That's a good question for Dalim, but I haven't seen that. All I had, was the ability to see who's assigned to things, right? Oops, photography. If you notice, photographer is set up to have the schedule tab, not the planning tab. So planning tab doesn't show up. Forgot who I was in. But you're able to come in here, and this is all I've seen where you're actually seeing this view, not a calendar view. So yeah, that would be a nice feature.
But that shows all
It
of
shows,
the users who are assigned to that project. And does it reflect the days they're working and the days that they're off? I think it does.
yeah, there's a slight reflection here, right? They're assigned on certain things, but you don't have a good way to see, like if I'm not mistaken, one of these I had actually set up to only work part of the day Friday. They'll go red, but that's the only thing I've seen that shows that. It'll show that they're red, that they're um, overbooked for that day. But I haven't seen it show, and I mean we could do that. Let's see. Since everybody seems to hang on anyway, let's take design 2, his calendar, and we're going to say he's off. Friday the 22nd. Was that design 2?
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't necessarily see anything denoting that, right?
Nothing jumps out.
Nothing jumps out at me. Well, let's see if I actually, let me do this. I'm gonna design 2. It just showed me he's overbooked. That's it. So yeah, it would be nice to have it reflect that. That's where I thought it was odd to me that while I'm planning, it doesn't update this to see how I'm booking them in. It doesn't update it until I save. I think it's useful if it would just update it constantly so I'm seeing how I'm booking, whether I'm overbooked before I save.
Well, you would also think that based on the fact that calendars allow you to define a user's day off and working hours, that it would be reflected here, but
Yeah,
I don't see
I
it.
agree. I agree. All right. What
One
else?
last question is, have you implemented this for any customers to date?
No, we have not. I believe the feature was done, and Mike and I were talking about this before the webinar. The feature was done for someone in Europe. So I would imagine they have implemented it for them. We have not, which is why I am very rusty at this and was just kind of learning it. I learned it for some training we did over the summer, and then kind of, that was just a kind of quick view of it. I was trying to get more into it this time, but definitely got stumbled a little bit. Wish I had started prepping a little bit earlier, in fact.
I know that Danny Cox at Bay Digital has it running for one of his customers.
He does? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure to what extent he set it up, but he definitely has it up and running for a client right now.
All right, so I'm trying to read that last question. Okay, just a comment. All right, so I think that's it. We're 10 minutes over, so again, everyone, thanks for your attention. Hopefully you got something out of that. We would be happy to help any of y'all start implementing this feature. I definitely think it's useful for quite some stuff. Kanban, I'm not sold on. I don't think Mike is either. Yeah, but yeah, I think they could do a lot with it though. It's nice to have it started. So again, we will be doing another webinar, I'm guessing the 3rd Wednesday of November. We do not have a topic yet, so if any of you do have an idea, something you'd like to see us cover, even if it's one of our original webinars, maybe you want to see it, if that's covered in the ES6 and we can refreshen it, we'll do that. More than likely, December webinar will be a Worldwide Technology Meeting recap. They are planning a Worldwide Technology Meeting, probably virtual, using the same software they did last year, which I thought went over really well. I really was impressed with that, and we'll just kind of recap, what they show there, hopefully some new features and some stuff to give us some more webinar topics. We've been doing this, what was it, Alex, we came up with? Like 6 years now, 7 years of these. It's tough to keep coming up with topics. So anytime Dalim can give us some ammo, we love it. Or if you guys want to see something, fire our way. We'd love to do it. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.